Nice. Okay, so it blocks in the blocks emotions, and then it blocks our visions. We can't see properly. Good. Yes. Layers of illusion. Okay, so when there are blockages, there are, it's not just like one illusion, there are multiple illusions which block us, which entrap us. Not able to forgive. Okay. It's, that definitely can lead to uh, emotional blockage. We may get caught in feelings of revengefulness or resentment, then we get locked in that. Yes. Thank you.
I think this is all summing up to avidya.
Avidya. Okay. So becomes a very general term. Avidya can be many things. Yes, true. Self pity. Okay, so now the two different things that are happening over here. One is there are like there's an explanation of what is emotional blockage, and then there are examples of emotional blockage. So self pity is an example of emotional blockage. Inability to forgive can be an example of what might cause an emotional blockage. So thank you. These are all very relevant answers, and you can see that even if we are not familiar with this term, this is something we all have probably experienced. Sometimes now, when we normally get very angry, we don't say a blockage. Anger does not cause a blockage; it causes a barrage, isn't it? You start speaking too much or acting too much. But the idea is overall that if we consider in the start of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was just ready to fight, and suddenly he just couldn't fight. So there were multiple factors that were involved that led him to not fight. But overall, we can see that there was a strong level of emotion involved. Gandivam Sramsate Hastat, his hands started trembling. Just couldn't function. He said, Achashaknomi avasthatum brahmativa cha me manaha. He said, I can't stay over here. My mind is reeling here, there, and everywhere. I don't know where to go. Hmm? So basically, Arjuna was blocked from doing his duty of fighting by the emotions that overwhelmed him that at that time. Krupaya paraya vishtam. So paraya, it's an overwhelming emotion that came upon him. So basically, when we talk about emotional blockages, all that you said is well relevant. Uh, we'll wait for this blockage to go, then I'll start writing. But the idea is, oh, is it okay? So we have a generator or we don't have? Okay. So that's fine. So basically, we want to go in a particular direction, and the emotions seem to block us. Then specifically, they may block us by locking our thoughts in something, locking our desires in something. But emotions become a significant obstacle. That time, a person may or may not become active, may inactive. Like in anger, a person may become hyperactive, but they are becoming active in a way different from what they wanted to do. So our emotions can overwhelm us and block us. For Arjuna, what exactly was the emotion that was blocking him? Okay, one answer is attachment.
Confusion about duty.
Confusion about duty.
Perplexity of future.
Perplexity about future. Can you elaborate confusion about duty? What do you mean?
We had two conflicting thoughts. One was coming from his family relations, and the other was coming from fighting for the kingdom. Because he was seeing that fighting is for fighting for kingdom. So he was not able to reconcile these, and this one was overpowering this. He was thinking it to be a selfish thing.
Exactly. So what happened was this. So basically, Arjuna was certainly overwhelmed by a very strong emotion. And some people, especially if they are of a more martial nature, you know, now people who like to fight in today's language, they're often called as war hawks. You say the current American government is coming up, so who is joining the minister? Are they hawks, or if they want to set off wars in different parts of the world? And they're hoping in Bangladesh, the new government will exert some pressure, and the hawks come in, they want to destabilize everything. So some people like wars, like to fight. So now some people who are a little hawkish mentality, they feel yes, Arjuna lost his nerve. Arjuna became fearful. That is just an attack of cowardice. Now, if you see, was Arjuna being cowardly? How do we know that? We like Arjuna, so he can't be cowardly. Sorry? He's all, we can look at his track record. He has fought many wars. In fact, we can say the wars he has fought in the Virat war, the odds were far tougher. He was all alone. So the thing is that Arjuna certainly had strong emotion, and the emotion was fear. But in the entire first chapter, Arjuna doesn't even once mention fear of his own death. There's absolutely no mention. The fear was of doing the wrong thing. He had two choices and he was extremely overwhelmed by how massive those choices were and the cost of those choices. You know, say in 1967-68, the world has come closest to a nuclear war. Now also it's dangerously close to World War III with Russia and Ukraine using advanced weapons against each other. But at that time, basically, the American censors had detected that Russia has sent a nuclear weapon against us. And if Russia has sent a nuclear weapon against us, then we should send it against them. And they have like 3-4 levels of clearance. Okay, at this president says this, and the commander says this, and that next, and then you press the button, and this will go. So I think they call it DEFCON rating. So they had almost come to the final level, and at that time they stopped. Now in America, I have a devotee friend. His cousin was in that team, and the elite security. They had to decide: now, should we press the button or not? Now it's a huge choice. If you don't press the button, the opposite side may be sending a nuclear weapon, and a large part of the country can be destroyed. And if say that alert is wrong, and you press the button, then you may kill large number of people on the other side. Thousands and millions of people could be killed. So the choice is huge. And at that time, the fear of doing the wrong thing, it actually comes from being very responsible. Somebody is a reckless person, just get some, just blow them up. Just some devilish joy people get in killing people. So Arjuna was about to fight a war, and fighting meant great destruction. So for it, on the other hand, if he didn't fight, it was unlikely that the other party is going to settle peacefully. Now, if he decides not to fight, it's unlikely even that the war will not happen by his not fighting. Maybe some people would support him. He had some influence of Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir might even agree with him, but Bhima was not going to agree with him at all, with not fighting. So by his not fighting, the most likely result would be that his side would have to fight a tougher war, and there would be more casualties on his side. Maybe his loved ones would be killed on this side, and he would have to watch passively. If he fought, there would be killing on the other side, on his side also. So the heaviness of the choice and not knowing at that time what is the right thing to do. That's what led him to being overwhelmed. Basically, for him, what happened is that in general, for us, there are positive emotions inside us and there are negative emotions inside us. Now, in one sense, you can go and say, actually, ultimately, no emotion is negative. Every emotion gives us some information that is of some value. But the emotion can become overwhelming to the extent of having a paralyzing or a detrimental effect on us. So, in that sense, certain emotions can be called negative. Fear is not a negative emotion. Fear is information that there is some danger out there. But sometimes the fear comes even when there is no danger. So then that fear becomes unhealthy. So no emotion intrinsically is negative. Say if you have a child is peering out of this window, bending out. Hey, don't do that. Child says, I don't feel any fear. The mother will say, that's why I feel great fear. Is it? So fear should be there. Fear is not a bad thing. When there is danger, fear is like the part of the mechanism that gives us that emotional alert. But sometimes, maybe we have been bitten by a dog a long time ago, and then we see a dog. We see a small, tiny, cuddly poodle. But still, for that, as the dog becomes a sharp teeth, and we feel fear. So there, the fear is unwarranted. So no emotion itself is a bad thing, but sometimes when there is some stimulus from outside, then that triggers some emotion inside us. Now the emotion itself is not bad, but the emotion can be sometimes it's coming there. The emotion can be warranted, or the emotion can be unwarranted. Say even anger is not a bad thing. Anger indicates that something is seriously wrong with something that is seriously important for us. And there are wrong things in the world. So if we are passing by a school area and we see some bully terrorizing some small little kid. Now, if we don't feel that there's something wrong out there, then there's something wrong in here. We should feel. Now, should we feel anger? Well, it's terribly wrong over there. Now, that does not mean necessarily we have to act on that anger and try to beat up the bully. What we do, that we have to decide ourselves. But emotion is basically information. Sometimes that information is coming from it's coming from some source, but is that information reliable? That we have to evaluate. So for Arjuna, his fear became great. So for all of us, there are positive emotions and there are negative emotions. In the sense that emotion, when I'm using the word positive, means they energize us. In terms of the negative means they exhaust us, they burden us, they drain us. So we have both kinds of emotions. And in general, for us to be in a relatively emotionally healthy state, our positive emotions need to be more than our negative emotions. Say, for example, at a fundamental level, a positive emotion is hope. A negative emotion is despair. So, hope is things will become better. Despair is things are never going to become better. Now, for all of us, in whatever area it might be, it might be with our own health, if we have some health challenges, it could be with some relationship, with respect to our professional growth, it could be with respect to our spiritual growth. There is hope that things can become better. And there is fear is there, but much more than fear is despair. Maybe this will never improve. So there are many emotions that could be warring within us, but broadly speaking, even if we get angry, there can be hope that I'll be able to get a better handle on my anger. There can be despair that I will never get a handle on my anger. Or if we feel our anger is because of genuine reasons, some genuine grievances or concerns, then there is hope that others will understand me. Others will take my concerns serious. Sometimes what happens is we are disturbed about something and we go and tell the other person. And when the other person just remains very calm and very cool. First we were disturbed about what had happened, and now we are disturbed because the other person is not disturbed. Isn't it? So we may have a hope that someone will understand me. And we may have despair that, oh, people just label me as short tempered and irritable. They will not understand my anger. So basically, in whatever situation, there is hope and there is despair. You're hearing this class, if there is some part is hoping, you'll understand what is going on. Another part is saying, maybe all this is too complex. I won't understand this. So now this may not be happening at an overt level, but covert at a more concealed level this is happening. And when despair becomes way, way greater than hope, that is ultimately can lead a person to ending their life. When a person feels that there is nothing to look forward to in my future, whatever to look forward to is all dark, what is the point of living? Or if we are in a particular place and there seems to be no positive way ahead, then what is the point of being here? So for Arjuna, at this particular point, it's not exactly suicide, but for him the hope becomes much, much lesser than the despair. And this is especially conveyed in 2.6. Nachi shaknomi avasthatum brahmat, no, not that. 2.6 is न चैतद्विद्मा कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदिवानो जयेयु यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषामस् ते अवस्थितः प्रमुखे धातराष्ट्र. I just don't know whether I should fight or not fight. And then next, 2 verses later, he says that even if I attain the heavens. So basically, for Arjuna, when he fights, when he's going to engage in that battle, there are two results possible. One is he wins and he gets the earth. The other is he loses, he dies, and he gets the heaven. So Arjuna is not philosophically ignorant. It's not that Arjuna doesn't know that there is a part of him that will survive and go to heaven. So even Atma Gyan, or at least some level of Atma Gyan, there is a part of us will survive and go to heaven. That's known to Arjuna. So, but he feels nahi prapashyami mamapanudyat yachokamuchoshanamindriyanam avapya bhumava saptanam vrittam rajyam suranam apichadipatyam. So he says that in this situation, neither of these options are palatable for me. That even if I fight and win, unless I am convinced that this fighting was a good thing to do, or that the fact that I fought and caused the killing of so many people, that will haunt me. Or if I fight and die, even if I go to heaven, he says that's not going to pacify me. Because maybe I should not have fought, winning or losing. So basically, he's saying that in the pathway that he's there is no bright option that he sees ahead. So at this point, Arjuna becomes overwhelmed. And the question that he's asking, his question is, Pruchhami tvam dharma sammudha chetaha. So his question is about dharma. He does not ask, should I fight or should I not fight? He does not even ask, what is my dharma? He asks, what is dharma? What does that mean? Dharma in this context, the word dharma has many different meanings. In the Bhagavad Gita itself, there are at least half a dozen meanings of the word dharma. And none of those refer to the meaning that we generally use, that is religion in today's world. But in this context, for Arjuna, dharma means the right thing to do. What is the right thing to do? What should I do in this situation? Now, when you think of the word the right thing, it can be in two different senses. One is in the sense of moral or morality. One is in the sense of morality, but the other is in the sense of meaningfulness. So, morality means, okay, this is ethically right, this is ethically wrong. That's more moral dimension to it. But in terms of meaning, meaning means what will be more meaningful for me. For all of us, when we do actions, we all innately want our life to be meaningful. We want that whatever we are doing should matter. That if tomorrow I die, we may have some fear that, oh, after I die, where will I go? But along with that, the fact that I lived, my life made some difference to someone. We inherently want our life to have some meaning. So Arjuna feels it's a crisis of morality, but for him it's also a crisis of meaning. What is the value of it? Sometimes we feel in this particular situation, whatever I do, nothing seems to be of value. So that kind of situation is where Krishna speaks to Arjuna. So his crisis is a crisis of morality, it's a crisis of meaning. So generally speaking, at a conscious level when we make decisions, mhm, many decisions we make at an unconscious level. Okay, this this new movie has come and I just want to watch the movie. I just want some entertainment over there. But when you make conscious decisions, generally there are those two factors: morality, what is the right thing to do, and meaning. Now, one meaning can also be pleasure, one level of meaning. We all want some pleasure in our life. But with respect to meaning, when we use the word, that is actually artha. Hmm? Now, there are many levels of artha in life. Hmm? So, for example, for a small child, artha is, for a newborn baby, the only artha is drinking the mother's milk. Hmm? Child grows up playing with toys. Child goes further up, okay, I want to be good at sports. I want to be better than others at sports. Child grows up. The meaning and purpose are two slightly different things. They're related, but meaning is like what is, how to make sense of this. I'm going to talk about purpose later. Make sense of things. Purpose is more about my role in things. Hmm? Meaning is what is going on over here. Purpose is what am I meant to do over here. The two are related, meaning and purpose, we talk about it. So, but they're slightly different. So, sometimes there's a quarrel going on between two people. So, meaning means we try to understand, okay, why are you two people quarreling? Purpose means, okay, what am I meant to do over here? Should I try to stop them? Should I call a third person? Should I just amuse myself by watching their fighting? That's not something we should do. But so purpose is more, see, meaning, you could say meaning is more cognitive. Cognitive means with our cognitive capacities and intelligence, it's more, meaning is more associated with Jnana we are trying to make sense of it, things. Purpose is more active. It is more associated with the karmendriyas. So meaning and purpose are both important. But my point I was talking is that when we are talking about meaning, it is, I want to make sense of things when something is happening, what's going on. But then I want to do something which will make things better, which will add value to things. So basically, we could say that if I can make sense of things, then I can play a better role in things over here. So there is, I'm talking about making sense of things. I don't know if you are able to make sense of what we're talking about over here. So there is making sense of things, and there is making sense in things. Now, what does it mean? Say, now imagine there's a fire somewhere. I have a friend in California as a firefighter. So that it's an American devotee. So he says, whenever there's a fire, California, there are a lot of fires occur. So whenever there's a fire, the first thing they would like to know is what caused the fire. Was it some fuel? Was it electricity? Was it arson? Was it accident? So we want to make sense of things. But sometimes we just can't make sense of things, isn't it? We can't know what caused the fire. So then, even then, what we have to do? Okay, this fire is here. There are civilians over there. We want to cut the fire off over there, attack it over there. So sometimes we can make sense of things, but sometimes we need to make sense in things. Hmm? Say, if we come home and say two of our children are fighting with each other, and yelling at each other, about to hit each other. Now, whatever, who is right, who is wrong, that will be discussed. First, stop fighting. filled with, he was hopeless. He was filled with despair. Now, we have our buddhi and we have our mana. The intelligence is associated broadly with reason, with the head, the rational faculty. The mind is more associated with emotion. So, in terms of his buddhi, he was confused and he was hopeless. By the end of the Gita, the same Arjuna picked up his bow in readiness to fight. Karishye vachanam tava. So he had become convinced and he had become confident. So, what did the Gita offer Arjuna? From that situation where he felt there was just no point. What am I to do over here? Either I have to kill others. Happen in the outer world, but it is through our mind that impact comes on us. The Jiva refers to our identity, and Jagadish is the divinity. So, many people, they have, especially when they come to the 35, 40, 45, 50, they have something which is called a midlife crisis. What happens is we have lived a significant part of our life, and at that time we start thinking, did I really do something meaningful with my life? If I'm moving forward, how can I, whatever life is ahead, how can I maximize the meaning in that life? So that time, what happens is we start thinking, this particular family, this particular job, this particular social circle. Do I want to be here? Sometimes people make big career shifts. Sometimes people try to think and do some different things. Sometimes people escape into some unhealthy habits. So these are the three elements. Now this is Arjuna was in the mid, mid of the two armies, and he was internally in the mid of a crisis. So we'll talk about how these three, understanding these three concepts, the mind, what our mind is and how it functions, understanding our identity, and understanding divinity. How these three can help us to find hope, to generally when we have some artha in our life, something that makes our life worth living. Yeah, there are many things wrong in everyone's life. This one thing is so important for me. For this sake, I will continue. For all of us, we often think that we are pleasure seeking. That is true, but we are not just pleasure seeking. There is Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So the first thing we seek is existence. Because we are spiritual beings, so first thing is we want to live. Chit means consciousness. And when we are conscious, With our consciousness, we want to make sense of things. We want a meaning in our life, and then we seek pleasure. First I want to survive, then I want to have something meaningful in my life, and afterwards I want pleasure also. The problem with modernity, many problems are there, but one problem is that what has happened is pleasure has become prioritized over meaning. So, for example, there is such a compulsive need for entertainment for people, because it's like there is no inner meaning in their life. So what happens is, find something which means somewhat titillating, something somewhat enjoyable. There's an American comedian who said that, my wife and I, we eat at different tables, we sleep in different rooms, we enter and exit the house through different doors, we watch different TVs, we drive different cars, we are doing everything possible to keep our marriage together. There is no marriage there at all. It's just a skeleton. But what happens is, for many people, their real life is so empty and devoid of meaning that they seek pleasure desperately. Now, what happens is, when we seek pleasure at the cost of meaning, slowly that pleasure goes down, a diminishing returns. And that is why sometimes, say, when, say, suppose we are very exhausted or frustrated or drained, we say, okay, I want to watch some TV. Maybe I want to watch some comedy shows. I want to laugh. How, if, okay, how many of you like humor? I mean, anybody who doesn't like humor is a very dangerous person. No, we may not nowadays. We all like to laugh. We all like enjoyment and that pleasure. There can be inappropriate humor. That's a wrong thing. But the point is, say, okay, watch a comedy show. Okay, we might, if it's a good comedy show, clean jokes, we might want to watch it for some time. But then, if somebody says from tomorrow onwards, you have no financial obligation, no family obligation, no social obligations, nothing to do. For the rest of your life, just sit in front of a TV and watch comedy shows for the rest of your life. Now, would we want to do that? Maybe for half an hour, 1 hour, maybe a few hours. If you're really fed up, maybe for a whole weekend. But after that, I want to do something, isn't it? Because see, we want pleasure, but we want meaningful pleasure. Hmm. So, what entertainment offers us is pleasure that really has not much meaning. So, why am I talking about this is that for Arjuna, he had a difficult war to fight, but he wanted to have some meaning to his life. And we all come to situations when we start feeling, does my life have some meaning or not? So, our mind, now when we talk about meaning, it is our mind which seeks meaning. Now, when I'm using the word mind, I'm here not rigidly differentiating between the buddhi and the mind. I'm referring to the subtle body entirely. Hmm? That the whole subtle body, there is an interface between us, like we said, matter, mind, and consciousness, the three levels of reality. So, we will talk about subtle differences if we get time. But there is a part of us which tries to make sense of things. The Darwin's idea is that we are all simply, uh, that we are biological machines driven for survival. That's true, we want to survive, but we want to not just survive, we want our survival to have meaning. So now, sometimes meaning is so important that meaning can become more important than survival also. So Darwin's idea was survival of the fittest, isn't it? But if you see human society, it is often characterized by sacrifice by the fittest. Sacrifice by the fittest. When the twin towers were collapsing, the firefighters ran inside. They were safe outside. When they knew in the going inside, they might not come out, the twin towers would collapse. They're fit and trained. They do sacrifice. So sacrifice, if it brings meaning into our life, we are ready to risk our very existence at some level. So meaning is so important for us. Now, of course, our mind may find or seek meaning in meaningless things. Hmm? That is there. Where we seek meaning is a different thing. But the point is, we all need meaning. Some kid may think, what was that? There are some games. There was some what, anyway. Like sometimes a kid's whole purpose of life becomes, I want to blue whale. The blue whale challenge. Yeah, like I want to get to number one stature in this game in the video world, in this video game, and that is what becomes the source of meaning for them. Their whole driving purpose. Entertainment has always been a part of human society, but generally, entertainment was a break from life. But for many people today, life is a break from entertainment. I had to go here and I had to do this. And the real thing is come back, go on social media, do this. So the point is, we all need meaning. Now, our mind is such a thing that it can seek meaning in various things in life. And that's why talking about, there is artha and there is a hierarchy of artha. There can be many things in which we can find meaning. And then there is paramartha. Paramartha is the source of the highest meaning. The thing which will make our life worth living to the greatest degree. So for Arjuna, at this particular level he was functioning, he was thinking that, okay, my meaning of life comes from being a warrior. That's my job. That's my work gives me that sense of meaning. I'm defined as a Kshatriya. But then I'm also responsible leader and member of this dynasty, Kuru dynasty, and I have to protect that dynasty also. So what do I do at this time? So generally, whenever at a basic level there's a mental health problem, what happens is that we seek wrong meaning. Now, what do I mean by wrong meaning? Wrong meaning means that some event has happened. The event has happened to us, but the meaning that our mind finds in that event, the meaning that is wrong in the sense that it's either factually wrong or it has a wrong effect on us. So, what do you mean by this? Some of you may have heard. One of my friends in again California, he is in mental health care. So at one time, as a part of the service, they have to be in this suicide, what do you call it? Suicide watch line, suicide helpline. So he had to pick up calls. So one day, call and there's some young woman screaming. He says, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. He says, what happened? She said, I've taken pills to end my life, but I don't want to die. Then he called, where are you exactly? She told, and he sent some there. The first responders were there. They just raced there. And then she was brought to the hospital. She survived. She had taken some too much sleeping pills or whatever. They managed to get it out of her body. And he asked her, what happened? So she said, I called my boyfriend and he didn't pick up my call. Said like that? Yeah, that's why I committed suicide. I said, oh, what? What? Just how many times we have called someone and they have not picked up our call? Most people want to commit murder, not suicide. How dare you not pick up my call? Not most, some people. But the point is, if you say, why? What's the big deal? But what happens is, so then she started talking. I was in a relationship with this boy for many years. I invested a lot in this relationship, but our relationship got a little strained. And when he didn't pick up my call, I started thinking that maybe he has left me. Maybe he will not want to be with me at all. Maybe uh, there is something wrong with me because of which he doesn't care for me. Maybe there is something terribly wrong with me because of which nobody will want to be with me. Maybe 10 years down the line, all my friends will be in healthy, happy relationship and I'll be all alone. And all of them will look at me with pity and feel sorry for me. I don't want to be an object of pity. Instead of living such a miserable life, let me just end my life. Now, at one level, it can seem as utterly foolish decision. But then there is a logic to it. It's a tragic logic, but there's a logic to it. So what has happened is from a small phone call to the point of ending one's life. Now, could that be a possibility? Well, anything can be a possibility in the world, but why do you go to that level of meaning? So, our mind, as when we say our mind is uncontrolled, what it means, there are many aspects to it, but one aspect is we often talk in our devotional circles, we often talk of controlling the mind means controlling our desires. But while our desires need to be controlled, our emotions, they are not meant to be controlled, they are to be calmed. Only tell the child to be quiet. Hmm? But if the child is scared terribly about something, the child is in pain about something, and at that time the child is crying, shut up, that would be cruelty, isn't it? So the approach that we use for dealing with desires of the mind cannot be simply imposed on emotions. They're two very different things. So desires, sometimes they may be unhealthy and they may not control them. No, I'm not going to do this. But emotions, they may arise from certain situations and they need to be dealt with. So it's not like somebody has a hammer, a child discovers a hammer and says, okay, I hit a nail. The nail goes inside. When the child finds the power of a hammer, then what happens? Everything becomes a nail. So for some people, everything, the solution to all mental health problems is self-control. Control yourself, discipline yourself. That can be cruelty. See, Krishna did not tell Arjuna, just shut up, become a man, control yourself. No, Krishna addressed his emotions. No, Krishna didn't pander to his sentiments, but Krishna addressed the emotions. So, when you're talking about the mind, see, there are desires that when the desires are going wild, it may need to be controlled. But when the desires are going wild, but when the emotions are going wild, at that time, we may need to be comforted, not controlled. Now, this is not an absolute categorization. Sometimes some emotions also need to be controlled. But if somebody is angry, they have to control themselves. But also, your anger, whatever has hurt you, that needs to be comforted. That wound needs to be addressed. So, Jiva Goswami says, what is the purpose of Krishna in purpose, speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna? He says we can understand the purpose of a book by looking at its start and at the end. Like if there's a class, the speaker is organized, they'll say, today I'm going to speak on this topic. And at the end, they'll say, this is the topic I spoke on. So he says we can know the purpose of the Gita by looking at the first words that Krishna spoke and the last word that Krishna spoke. So in 2.11, now Krishna has spoken a few words before this, but they are more conversational words. They are not like instructional or philosophical words. So Ashochan and Ma Shuchaha. Now Shochan can mean lament. It can also mean fear. Ma Shuchaha Prabhupada translates as do not fear. So Ashochan, that not worth fearing, and don't fear. So the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita, he says, is to free us from fear. There are many things in the world that cause fear to us. And the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita is to free us from fear. So, like say, our child is sick. And maybe there's got some lump on the body and we come to know that it's cancer. And we might get completely panicky. And we go to a doctor. And the doctor says, Ashokya. This is, don't be so disturbed by it. This is a treatable disease. This is a curable disease. And the first thing with respect to the mind, it makes meaning out of destructive meanings. Destructive meanings means, say, if we go to some gathering and then we greet someone and that person doesn't greet us back, we might feel a little annoyed, we might feel a little disturbed. That's understandable. But then from there you start thinking, actually, no, these are all that the mind is constructing the prophet. So when the mind that the mind is constructing the prophet. So when the mind constructs meaning out of events, what happens is there is a event that happens, but the mind assigns some meaning to it. And a healthy mind is able to assign a constructive meaning to events. Okay, this has happened. This is what we can do about it. Let's see why this has happened. So for us, when Krishna talks about, so many times we talk about mind control, but it's definitely important. But in the Western world, we stopped using the word mind control. Why? Because in the West, when people hear the word mind control, they think of others controlling our mind. Like there are cults which brainwash and program. So they have this idea that mind control means that somebody else is going to take control of your mind. The typical word is mind control cults are there. So now sometimes we may think the mind is an enemy, but a normal enemy will just destroy the enemy, isn't it? Will destroy the enemy. So Israel and there's fighting with the Palestine or the Hezbollah. There's some leaders over there, terrorist leaders or whatever, the insurgent leaders. Israel just kill them. So does Krishna say kill your mind? What does Krishna say? Does he say control? What is the end result? Make a friend. So the point here is the mind is what is going to construct meaning for us. Now we can go towards two extreme in dealing with the mind. One is we become its slave. If we become its slave, that's definitely unhealthy. But the other is make it our slave. If we become its slave, we will stagnate. We will degrade. Whatever the mind says, we start doing it. But if we make it our slave, we will suffocate. Suffocate means every single emotion that is coming, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Shut up. Every single concern a child expresses, shut up, be silent. How will the child grow? We want a healthy relationship with our mind. That is the idea of friendship. So the mind constructs meaning, but the mind can construct destructive meaning. So controlling the mind or managing the mind, making the mind our friend means that the mind is able to find a constructive meaning in situations. So when Prabhupada was in America and he was with this David Allen, who was the person with whom we were staying, and he was the first person who might become a devotee, it seemed. Prabhupada had even letters to India saying that he is likely to become the first Vaishnava. And that person went on a drug high and attacked Prabhupada. There are for few things which can be as devastating to the morale of someone. It's one thing to be just attacked. That itself is scary. But the person whom we are trying to train, whom we are trying to help, the person for whom we do a lot, and that person turns and attacks us. It can just make a person lose faith in humanity itself. Why should I care for anyone? For the person I was doing so much, that person is doing this to me now. I won't care for anyone. Prabhupada could have just abandoned over there. He had tried. He said, I tried. It didn't work. Prabhupada could have constructed that meaning. He said, okay. Prabhupada said, let me try. Is there some option open for me? I have come here to serve. This is setback. Let me try to serve. So Prabhupada called some of the people who were attending the program and he said, this is what happened, and they arranged some alternative accommodation for Prabhupada. So basically, for us, mental health or a healthy mind, what it means is the meaning will always be constructing some meaning. Either it is a helpful meaning or it's a harmful meaning. And philosophy is ultimately meant to help us construct a helpful meaning, not a harmful meaning. So I'll just make two more. We have a lot to discuss, but I'll shorten it. I'll talk about this concept of meaning and then we'll move forward from there. That if you see, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna and he said that that do not lament. He talks about Dehinosmin Yatha Dehe and Dhirastatana Mohiyati. But then Abhimanyu dies. And when Abhimanyu dies, Arjuna just collapses. And Arjuna then lashes out at his brothers. There are several dozens of verses, at least more than a couple of dozen verses that are there in the Mahabharata describing Arjuna's lamentation. And now Krishna doesn't say, just 14 days ago I spoke the Bhagavad Gita. Have you forgotten it? What a dumb fool. Maybe I should have chosen someone else as a candidate to speak the Bhagavad Gita. This is a difference between desires and emotions. Desires we need to be controlled. But when Arjuna is in grief, Krishna does not use philosophy to pile on top of him. See, philosophy is one way to construct meaning in our life. But at that time, Arjuna lashes out at his brothers and he says, are all your weapons just ornaments? Could not one of you protect my son? Shame on you. Now, Yudhishthira and Bhima, they feel as if they've been lashed on their face. And at that time, Krishna pulled Arjuna into a side arc. And he says, oh Partha, in this world, distress befalls everyone, the wise and the unwise. What differentiates them is that amid distress, the unwise act in ways that make things worse. The wise act in ways that make things better. He says, oh Arjuna, look at the faces of your brothers. They are in pain due to the death of Abhimanyu, just as you are. Please don't speak words that will increase their pain. Please don't speak words that will increase their pain. So Krishna does not go into elaborate philosophy over there. At this point he says, this has happened now, let's not make things worse. So Arjuna could have constructed meaning at many different levels. He could say, you Yudhishthira, you made this plan. Or you allowed this plan to happen. Abhimanyu going inside. The meaning that he sought over there was, okay, that the Pandavas, in his absence, had made a sensible plan. Chakravarti had to be stopped, otherwise Yudhishthira would have been arrested. He is the king. They had made a sensible plan. Now, who killed Abhimanyu actually? 6 people attacked him simultaneously. That's how he became disarmed and wounded. But finally, it was Duryodhan's son, not Dushasan's son, Durjay, who hit the final blow. Arjuna could have said, no, I'll go and kill Durjay. But Arjuna, he targeted whom? Jayadratha. So basically what happened is, at that particular time, he said, you had made a plan and that plan was deliberately thwarted by Jayadratha. Now Jayadratha could have shown his power at any time. But at that particular time, by showing his power, he basically sentenced Abhimanyu to his death. That Abhimanyu fought for so many hours alone is to his glory. But as soon as the Chakravyuha closed, more or less Abhimanyu's sentence of death was finalized. So that's why Arjuna, the meaning he constructed over there was, Abhimanyu has been killed. Jayadratha is the person who foiled the plan for protecting Abhimanyu. So I will remove him from the army. So this is, instead of lashing out at his brothers, he constructed meaning. So when we talk about meaning over here, there is something which is ultimate meaning of life. That is, we want to love and Krishna and Krishna. But then there is some immediate meaning we need. Okay, what am I meant to do in this situation? What can I do in this situation by which I can make things better? So Sattva Guna, when we cultivate that, our mind goes more towards constructive. In Tamoguna, it will always go towards destructive. So the mind plays a very, very big role. So the whole idea is philosophy and association. All these are meant to help us construct a healthy meaning in whatever situation we are in. I'll talk about the last 2 points quickly. What are the next 2 points? Identity. So now mind is fundamental, because even if there's a question of identity, it is our mind which reflects our sense of identity. Now, sometimes it is said the focus of Krishna talking about Dehinosman Yatha Dehe is to tell Arjuna, you are not the body or the soul. Well, that is a message for us from the Bhagavad Gita that Prabhupada gives. Arjuna did not need to know that. Arjuna already knew he was not the body of the soul. And actually, even after that, immediately, uh, Krishna addresses Arjuna with a name based on his body. Matra sparshas kaunteya shitoshna sukha dukkadaha agam apayino nitya sam titikshasa Bharata. Kaunteya and Bharata. If Arjuna is not the body, then he is not the son of Kunti. If he is not the body, then he is not in the Bharata dynasty. So the sense of identity is that we have multiple levels of identities. We have functional identity, which is more of vyavaharik. So we may be males or females. We may be South Indians or North Indians. We may be middle-aged or teenagers. So we have many functional identities. And underlying them is a fundamental identity. So what happens is, now when the mind constructs meaning, so we're just going to build using these 2 points on that. The way the mind constructs meaning is based on what we identify with the most. Like say somebody might be a professional and somebody might also be a parent. Now if they have an urgent meeting in office, some project deadline is there, and at that time they come to know, no, their child has got in trouble in school and the teacher has called them in school. Now what should you do? What should you do? Well, it depends on what we consider more important. So when you consider job more important, that is where the artha is coming. They'll say, okay, I cannot go come right. When you say, okay, job is all right, I have to go, my child needs me right now. So we all construct identity based, we all construct our sense of meaning based on what we identify with the most. Somebody may be very successful professionally, but if the child goes into depression or the child gets into bad habits, then that will create a great sense of failure within them, because that is also an identity that we have. So what happens is, what Krishna is telling Arjuna through talking about the soul is that you are thinking, if you fight, you will be a failure based on your identity as a member of the Kuru dynasty. If you don't fight, then you will be a failure based on your identity as a Kshatriya. So sometimes there's just no winning over there. So Krishna tells Arjuna, you have to go down to your fundamental identity. We have many functional identities. We have many different identities, but a fundamental identity is you are a soul. You are a part of me. We are a part, we are souls, we are indestructible. So when we are constructing meaning, what does this mean to me? So if somebody identifies themselves as a cricket fan, India loses the cricket match, that's the end of the world for them. That's not the end of the world, isn't it? So, but we may construct meaning because we identify ourselves strongly as a cricket fan. So we may have many identities, but if we identify too much with our functional identity, the meaning we construct will be destabilizing eventually. So our meaning has to be constructed fundamentally based on our identity as a soul. I am primarily a soul. As a soul, I might be a mother or a father. As a soul, I might be a software engineer. But I am first and foremost a soul. And when our sense of identity is clear, then it's more helpful to construct positive meaning. And the last part is divinity. Now, what does divinity mean? It refers to God essentially. But there are two things which are meant to happen when we study the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. That we could call it that God with me. This should lead us to I will be with God. So God is with me is the vision of faith. And then by faith we understand God is with me. Surrender means I will be with God. So we may go through many difficult things in our life. And we may memorize many shlokas, we may do many pujas, hear many kathas. Ultimately, through whatever we do, whether in terms of hearing the philosophy or in our rituals, these twin convictions, if they come within us, God is with me and I want to be with God. So Arjuna at the end, in 1873, he says, Karishe vachanam tava. I will be with you. And when we say God is with me, what does that mean? That through whatever is happening in our life, it may be terrible, it may be chaotic, it may be a complete carnage, but through whatever is happening, Krishna is in charge. Krishna is making things work out. So God is with me. I'm not just alone and abandoned. God will guide me through. So sometimes we just put in situations which don't make sense. But just because they don't make sense to us does not mean that they don't make sense to God. Just because we are lost does not mean that God, that we are lost to God. God is still with us and He will get us through whatever situation. Sometimes it may be because of someone else's mistake that in a particular situation. Sometimes it may be because of our mistake. Sometimes a combination of our mistake and other people's mistake. But whatever be the reason we have got there, no, God has got us. Whatever the reason, say for example, we conclude this point of God is with me and I'll be with God. With an example I think I gave last time when I come here, GPS. Now suppose say we want to go to a particular destination. While going there, the GPS tells us turn left. And somehow we think, my left is not the right way. We turn right. Or we ask someone, we think the GPS is not reliable, we turn right. Now whether it is our decision, somebody else's guidance, we find out it's wrong. Now if we got to the wrong place, we've taken a wrong turn, what does the GPS do? Does the GPS, you didn't obey me, get lost? No. So the GPS doesn't do that. So ultimately, when we say God is with me, that means we are always within God's positioning system. That no place that we might be in our life, it might be because somebody else has cheated us, somebody else has misled us. It could be because we made mistakes. Whatever has happened, we are never out of God's positioning system. Wherever we are, God is with us. And when we are within God's positioning system means that like some territory may not be mapped by Google only. Like you're deep in the Sahara Desert or somewhere. But there's no territory that is not mapped by God. We are always within God's positioning system. And we are with God. That means, okay, now let me listen to the GPS and let me start acting. So it is not that Krishna gives Arjuna some esoteric explanation based on a previous life. No, Bhishma was so and so in that life, and Drona was so and so in that life, and you did that over there, and you did that over there, and that's why now all of you are fighting each other. In one sense, we talk about making sense of things and making sense in things. It is not that Krishna gives any special sense to Arjuna about why this war has to be fought. He said the war is there, now fight it, now make the best out of it. I am with you. So for Arjuna, this I will be with God. What does this mean? That means service attitude. Karishye vachanam tava is an act of, is an expression of service attitude. I will do your will. Now what service attitude could have a specific meaning. That is, we come and do some seva. Okay, we come to a temple, we may be a big person professionally, but we come and we clean the temple hall, wash the utensils. That may be activities of service. That's good. But at a broad level, if we understand that Krishna is our well-wisher, Surudam Sarva Bhutanam, Krishna wants to make things better. And Krishna wants us to be a part of his plan to make things better. So service attitude means, at one level you can say, simple question, how can I serve? That's a valid question. It got to with how can I make things better? Or sometimes we think things are so messy, they can never become better. Okay, then how can I contribute to make things better? Maybe things may not become better. At least I'll act in a way that doesn't make things worse. So if we keep this attitude, then dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite. Krishna says, I will give you the intelligence that even if life doesn't make sense to us, Krishna is still in charge of our life and he will guide us. So, Mamaivamsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhutaha Sanatanaha. So, when we use this, we often use this philosophy, the statement to emphasize its philosophical dimension. That we are not God, we will never become God. We are always parts of God. So that is a philosophical point, but it has a psychological implication. Psychologically, what does it mean? That we will always have parts in Krishna's plan. If we are always parts of Krishna, that means we'll always have parts in Krishna's plan. It's like somebody selected in the Indian national cricket team. If they are in the team, that means they will have a part in the team. And that part may be as a bowler, as a batsman, as a wicketkeeper, whatever. So, like that, we are always in Krishna's team. There is no action that we can do that will cause Krishna to throw us out of his team. This is apichet suduracharo bhajate mamanyabhak sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasito hisa. There is nothing we can do to ourselves or others can do to us that can ever make Krishna stop loving us. There is nothing that we can ever do by which Krishna will say, you are no longer my part. So we are always parts of Krishna. We are always on Team Krishna. And we have a part over there. So with this service attitude, okay, in this situation, what can I do? How can I contribute to making things better? So small levels of artha. We start, okay, in this situation, okay, this person has spoken hurtfully to me. I'll go and hit back at them with harsh words. That's not likely to make things better. So what can I do to make things better? I'm sick and I just don't know how my disease is going to be cured. No medicine seems to be working. Okay, what can I do in this time to make things better? Maybe if medicine is not working, I can eat food healthy, I can do some exercise, I can keep my mind calm so that the mind doesn't contribute to body's health, ill health. You know, what can I do right now? So if we keep that attitude, that service attitude is going to be like a torch for us. The emotion causes a blockage, it causes darkness. Instead of why is this happening to me, we focus on how can I contribute to make things better. So that amid the darkness that has come, that question itself will be like a flashlight. It may not show us the full way, but it can show us one step ahead and one step after that and one step after that. We take that one step, the flashlight will show the next step ahead and the next step ahead. And in that way, we can go through even the darkest phases of our life and we can emerge stronger through it all. So this is how, by understanding, Arjuna understanding that Krishna has a higher plan. Even if I can't make sense of things, Krishna has a higher plan and he has given a part for me in this plan. So I will do my part. That's what restores Arjuna's confidence. That's what gives him conviction. That's what helps him to go beyond that emotional blockage. And similarly, it can help us also. So we'll talk today about the Gita wisdom, about what it does. Gita for dealing with emotional blockage. So I talked about broadly 4 points. I started with basically what is the purpose of the Gita. So we discussed elaborately. We talked about emotions and emotional blockages. So the Gita started with Arjuna being filled with fear, and that was blocking him. So from the point of being hopeless to the point of being confident, that was the dramatic change the Gita brought about. So in one sense, the Gita is offering a worldview for emotion management. It is meant to help us manage our emotions. So how does it do it? We focused primarily on the acronym MID. Sometimes people in the middle of a life, they have a midlife crisis. So like that. So M was what? Mind. We talked about the mind is the most practical or most effectual manifestation of the Jagat for us. And we discussed what does the mind do? The mind makes meaning. Assign means meaning. And sometimes the way the mind assigns meaning it can be destructive or constructive. So we talked about, when you're talking about dealing with the mind, it's not a one approach for everything. Desires, they need to be controlled, but emotions is not the same approach to deal with it. They have to be comforted. So we talked about how, in one sense, the Gita's message is a message of comfort. Do not fear, that is the conclusion, and not worth fearing. So basically, we are in a particular situation in our life. What kind of meaning are we constructing, and how do we go about constructing it? So then we talked about I was identity. So the meaning that we construct is based on our conception of our identity. So the identity conception that determines our meaning. So if I have a job just because I want to earn some money, I lose that job, okay, I'll find some other job. But if my whole life was invested in, say, I want to become a lawyer, I want to become a software, I want to become XYZ, and then we lose that job. Then if we're invested very much in that job, then losing that job will be devastating. So when we have an indestructible identity, when we realize that identity is indestructible, then what happens is we also have indestructible meaning for us. That I am a soul, therefore there is always something I can do. And last part was D was divinity. So divinity means Jagadish. So we talked about two things. When we understand the role of the divine, what happens? First is God is with me. God is with me. For that, we get the example of Krishna's GPS. There's no one is lost to Krishna, even if we feel lost. Krishna has mapped out all the territory. Even despite our mistakes, others' manipulations, God is with me. And therefore, I will be with God. So I'll be with God means what? That this is the vision of faith. This is the action of surrender. I'll be with God. The way we do it is by service attitude. And service attitude can refer to specific services that we do, direct devotional service that we do. But it can also refer to, yes, how can I make things better? Or how can I contribute to making things better? And if this is the question we focus on, so now everybody with their mind, they can try to construct some positive meaning. But sometimes there will be so much negativity. How do I construct meaning? That's where we need to have that understanding that God exists, God cares. How can I contribute to making things better? So this can be like our flashlight, and by that flashlight, we can find light even in the darkest of situations. So life can be very complicated, and we may face many different situations. But whatever karma may get us to, my karma, somebody else's karma, my present karma, past karma, whatever it is, Gana karma, whatever karma may get us to, Krishna will get us through. Whatever karma may get us to, Krishna will get us through. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Do we have time for questions? One or two questions?
Please raise your hand. We'll pass on the mic. Please feel free to ask questions. It's Vrindavan Park. I'll ask two. Just feedback. You are just thank you for giving the beautiful class. Very informative and really lot of insights. You give example of God's positioning system. I want to just ask my question as in using an example. Suppose I'm leaving from my home and I have to come to temple, and I'm using GPS. For whatever reason, I take multiple wrong turns, and finally I come to a point where I see that the temple now from where I am is like 20 kilometers, it's like 2 hour ride, and just around the corner there is a mall. and I'm a struggling devotee. I am struggling with my desires at the same time trying to practice. Now, how not to be overwhelmed looking at a 20-kilometer distance? And tempted by the ball. Tempted by the ball. So guilty pleasures are so easily available. How not to be overwhelmed and at the same time practice?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Basically, when we say that we are never lost to God's positioning system, that does not mean that choices don't have consequences. See, every wrong turn that we take in a GPS, it will going to take us further away. It will take more time, more fuel. So choices do have consequences. So it's not that just because we are always in God's positional system means everything is fine. Every action is fine. No, actions have consequences. And so now, in general, the kind of choices we have made in the past will not force but push us to make similar kind of choices. So, in our position that we are in, we need to be able to find out how can I make the better choice. Two choices, and in some for some people, some choices may be really almost difficult to impossible to make. And accept that sometimes some battles we just can't win. Just because we can't win some battles does not mean that we should stop fighting the war. So in that particular situation, it may be that we feel so discouraged, we just I'm not going to go to the temple today. So I'm just going to go to the mall. That can happen. But that doesn't mean okay, I'll never again go to the temple. So it is possible that sometimes some situations may be such that we just lose the war over there, lose the battle over there. But then there's the next battle that happens, next opportunity that comes. So we don't have to beat ourselves up too much when we make a wrong choice. Okay, I made the wrong choice. There's something for me to learn. Let me learn from it. Otherwise, we also have to consider circumstances. Sometimes, in certain circumstances, certain actions may just be what we end up doing. We accept that. In that situation, it happened. But afterwards, we move on. So, being willing to accept our weakness, that is not a sign of weakness. It is like beating ourselves up. Why am I so weak? Why am I so weak? And by beating ourselves, we make us further weak. We make us weaker. That's not good. So okay, except sometimes we can't make good choices. But okay, that particular episode of the world. In the next episode, let me move, make a better choice. Yes, very. Yeah, yeah.
One probably one marketing will do like that. So we come to you.
Yeah, Vijay mentioned about sacrifice. Human life is characterized by sacrifice. Tell more about it.
No, so what I was saying is, I'm not saying human life is characterized by that all the time. What I meant by that is, see, survival is a value for us, no doubt. But is that the only value that drives our decisions? No. Many of the noblest actions that inspire others are not based on survival, they're based on sacrifice, isn't it? Soldiers fighting. So basically, the idea is that mm, even if like some aspects of the evolutionary theory are are verifiable by nature, you know, there's survival of the fittest, species adapt themselves. Some aspects might be true, but even now mainstream scientists they find it very difficult to explain why would we go against our biological imperative as humans. They say there is some genetic misfiring or some gene has come or this or that, but it's more like a it's not a very coherent scientific theory. It's just like as giving some cause and saying explaining it away. So the point is there is some part of us which values something more than survival. Now, is that part present in everyone? Not necessarily. Or is that part active in everyone? Not necessarily. So it depends on when we talk about Satchitananda also. You know how much Sat aspect is manifest, how much Chit aspect is manifest, how much Ananda aspect is manifest. That depends on how much the covering of Sattva Rajas Tamas is there on people. Like if we always want to exist, then why would somebody want to commit suicide? So that's because at that particular point, the lack of happiness, the lack of meaning has become so great in their life that they start feeling, what is the point of living? So the chit aspect which seeks meaning even at the cost of risking life, that is present in some people. The point I was making is that meaning is so important for us that we are ready to sacrifice other things for the sake of meaning. Okay? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. First of all, please accept my humble obeisances. Uh, I have a question in terms of, I think in Bhagavad Gita 15.15 it is said that God says that I said in your heart, from me emanates remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. And any thought process, any thought which comes to your mind which might lead to hope or despair. If Krishna says that every thought, the forgetfulness even or memory comes from him, then what choices does a soul have? What level of choices does it have?
See, Krishna also says right in the beginning of the Gita, Yathamam prapadyate, before that. So the knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness that we get, it is all in response to our free will and specifically our desires. So based on what we desire, we get some remembrance and we get some forgetfulness. So for example, somebody is an alcoholic and they are trying to recover from alcoholism. If their desire to recover from alcoholism is very strong, then what happens is that when they pass by a bar, the remembrance that they will be given is that remembrance will rise from their heart. No, how much embarrassment you got into because of drinking, how much health problems you had, and that remembrance will come, and the intoxication, the high of alcohol, they will forget it. And then the knowledge of what to do at that time. Okay, I have to get away from this bar as quickly as possible. I don't want to go inside, but drive away from here. That knowledge will come. On the other hand, if the desire to drink is very strong and they entertain that desire, then what will happen is the remembrance of the pleasure of drinking will come and the forgetfulness of all the problems associated with drinking will come. The knowledge will be, okay, how can I go and drink without anyone coming to know about it? That's what will come. So this that it's not that when Krishna says I give knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness, that does not mean he's doing it arbitrarily. That all three are based on principle of reciprocity, which is the desire we are cultivating. So when we say in the practice of bhakti we get higher taste, what does that mean? That then many things, but one thing is that the remembrance of the higher pleasure becomes so prominent, and the remembrance of the lower pleasure becomes almost insignificant. And that's how that particular craving does not tempt us anymore. So it is not that Krishna is specifically causing that thought to rise within us. It is almost like there is based on the impressions in our mind. In our mind, there are many different impressions, and among those impressions, if you say consider these are all like the mind uh, is like a high security buildings, big the central security window, security computer. So there are cameras from all the door, exit, entry, exit point. They're all windows over there. Now some window becomes big, some window becomes small. So which window becomes big, which window becomes small, that ideally should be depending on, okay, is there some dangerous person coming over here? Based on that, it should be determined. But ultimately, the windows are already been installed. So like that, for us, there are a set of options inside us, and which one we maximize. That's how we get maximized. So when we desire something, it's like I click on a particular window, and then that zooms out. So my desire is like clicking. That window zooming out is matta smritir jnanam apohanam. That window getting large is the smriti. The other windows warning us, don't do this. That window gets minimized. That's apohanam. So that's how this whole thing works for us.
Just you are saying that what desire a person has is dependent, that is independent of Krishna's choice, or
Is our desire independent of Krishna's choice? once you start going into the cycle, it can become quite complicated. But the essential principle is we always have free will. The free will, the free will is within a range. So that range is determined by our past karma, and that past karma works under Krishna. What do I mean by that? Say somebody is an alcoholic. Say, I just can't stop. I just can't not drink. Okay, they may not. I can't not drink. But maybe you can choose whether you stop with one drink or two drinks or three drinks or go to 10 drinks. Nobody can say I don't have any free will at all. Maybe there somebody say I'm alcoholic. My only free will is whether I want to drink beer or whiskey. Well, that is some range of free will, isn't it? So there, we always have free will within a range of options. But based on the desire that we dwell on, the desire that we develop. So in terms of what pops up when or what is present when, that is not in our control. But when something pops up, do we zoom in on it? Do we pay attention to it? Or do we try to minimize it? So the exact interaction between what is the range of free will and what is the extent of free will we are, that's a whole different subject. I have a whole seminar on how free is our free will. So that depends. There is always some room for the free will, and that can increase or decrease, but there is some room. So within that room, if we choose a healthier option, that's what will become easier for us in future. Okay.
Therefore, you said that our past choices don't force us but push us towards the next step.
Yes, we are products of our past, but we are not prisoners of our past. Okay. Yes, please.
Firstly, thank you very much for the class. You mentioned Arjuna had two confusions. One, not morality, which I understand, whether he can kill his elders, relatives. But you also said he had a confusion on meaning. So I cannot understand that. Meaning is he will end the war, he will kill the wrongdoing of you. So what's the confusion he had on meaning?
No, I didn't say that Arjuna had two confusions. I say that Arjuna's question about what is the right thing to do. The right thing to do, determining it, can be seen from a moral perspective or it can be seen from the perspective of meaning. Say, for example, like I give our contemporary example, somebody has an urgent project deadline in the office, their meeting going on, and their child has gotten into some trouble, they called in the school. Now, is it a moral question? Both are duties. Now, being a parent is a duty. If we're working in a company, the company is paying us, a responsible post, doing that is also a duty. So it's not so much a moral question. You could say it's a moral question, but there is also a dimension of meaning. What is more important for me? So the question, the dilemma of Arjuna could be seen from the perspective of morality. It can also be seen from the perspective of meaning. That yes, which is more important for me? Being a Kshatriya and fighting the war, because that's what my calling is. That's what my job is. That's why I have been given. I have the role of a king. Or what is more meaningful for me? Is it that I'm a member of this dynasty? I have to protect this dynasty. So we focused on analyzing Arjuna's dilemma from the perspective of meaning. If you want to go into morality, then we'll go into the dimension of what Duryodhana had done, what the Pandavas had done. Krishna himself does not go into the moral dimension so much. So Krishna uses ethics, the ethical dilemma, as a starting point for a philosophical deliberation. So Krishna says that in one sense, the question of what is right has to be answered by going deeper to what is real. What really exists, what really matters. So this what is right is a question of ethics. It is a question of morality. This is a question of ethics. What is real? That's a question of philosophy. So, or more specifically of ontology, the nature of reality. It's one branch of law or metaphysics, whatever word. The point is, so that's I didn't focus on the moral aspect of it because that was not the focus of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita.
And Prabhuji, just to add, when anybody is trying to find the meaning, that would depend on what is the identity one is associating with, as you said. So if the identity one is associating with is just of a Kshatriya, then he would associate that meaning. But if the identity is also of part and parcel of Krishna, and therefore more than me being important, what is meaningful to me, it's also important what would please Krishna in this situation. Is that the right understanding? That's so because when you said that, when you said that Arjuna has to find meaning, and when you said that what is it that's good for me, so that can also go to the extent of self-obsession or self-centric, what is good for me or selfish perspective. But then it can be generalized by saying that okay, what is good for me, we interpret or assess based on what we think we are, which is where your point of functional identity versus fundamental identity comes. So therefore, even this point of whether so what is useful, what is good for me can be again seen at multiple levels. A person who's only engrossed in the functional identity or in bodily platform would think that okay, this is good for me or this is what I'm supposed to do. Versus if somebody is also conscious of the fundamental identity, then one would also see what part God would want me to play. So uh, 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 both can be attributed to this point which you said of what is good for me.
Yeah, so what is meaningful for me? I don't really get onto what is good for me. Because we're talking about what is right and what is meaningful. So now, if somebody's highest value in life is pleasure,
then that is meaningful.
then they'll just look for what is pleasure for me. Say if I got 5 gulab jamuns and my highest value is pleasure, and there are 5 people coming, then I'll eat all the 5 gulab jamuns before they reach here. Isn't it? Or if my value is relationship, it's like I would have a good relationship with others. Then I'm enjoying something. I want to others also to enjoy it. Then I may share it with others. So it's not a lack of meaning. It's just that if our value, where is it coming from, that will determine our decisions. So if I am thinking myself as as you said, a solitary enjoyer, if I think that I'm a part of a community, and in reciprocating, there's enjoyment, mm, then they will look at it from that perspective. Ultimately, our consciousness expands. So when somebody is narcissist or somebody is very selfish, the consciousness is shrunk them only. But the consciousness can expand to family, it can expand to community, ultimately can expand to include Krishna.
So meaningful to me is not necessarily selfish. It depends on the
Yeah,
consciousness.
exactly.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so over here. So first of all, thank you for that wonderful session. So my question is mainly around mind. You talked about three things. You mentioned about that you can become a slave and then stagnate. You can try to make it your slave, suffocate. And third option which you suggested was to make it as your friend. But how do we actually go about doing it in a practical basis to make it as your friend?
See, the mind has many impressions within it. Hmm? Now, the specific words may be different, but I'll use a particular set of words and I'll explain what I mean. In the mind, there are instincts and there are impulses. But the impulses are associated generally with the anarthas: anger, greed, lust. The impulses are often anti intelligent. That means when we act impulsively, we act against our intelligence. So these are the anarthas. Now, the instincts are associated with our vritti or our varna. So instincts are more like programmed intelligence. Programmed intelligence means some people have a musical instinct, some people have a language instinct, some people have a drawing instinct, some people have like a home decoration instinct. In modern language, we talk about different kinds of intelligences are there, just innately there in people. So, with respect to our impulses, they need to be regulated, they need to be curbed. But the instincts, they need to be facilitated, they need to be channeled, they need to be. Now, dovetail, nobody outside Iskcon knows the word only. So, most people, what is a dove? What is the tail of a dove? What do you do with a dovetail? So, they need to be they need to be channeled. So if you see in the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna is speaking in third chapter, he talks about two distinct and almost opposite things. First, he says, Arjuna, you are Kshatriya, what will repression accomplish? He says, Sadrushim cheshate sasya prakritir jnanamanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyasi. Says, you are a warrior, you are a protector. He says, if you don't fight this war, in future, when you hear the Kauravas are performing atrocities against people, you won't be able to live with yourself. Your natural instinct is to be a protector. So be a protector. So in that sense, when we say we become a friend with someone, that doesn't mean we always listen to them or they listen to us. No, we share interests. Okay, let's today we'll go here. Today we'll go to the place where you like. Tomorrow we'll go to the place where I like. But then there's negotiation. So in that negotiation, both of them are in the mind. So instincts, they need to be accommodated. They need to be facilitated. They need to be developed. The whole purpose of Varnashram at one level is to develop people's instincts, what the instincts they originally have from previous lives, to give them facility to develop them so that they can contribute to society, so that they can get satisfaction to that. But if you see 334, there was one so-called spiritual teacher. For him, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is Nigraha Kim Karishyasi. What can repression accomplish? And for him, it means, eat whatever you want, be sexually intimate with whoever you want, just do whatever you want. But if you consider just after this, there's a whole section, 336 to 43, where Arjuna is asking, there's something inside me which makes me act self-destructively. What is it and what can I do about it? Now Krishna would have said, I already told you what to do. Kim nigra kim karishyasi. Just do whatever it tells you to do it. Krishna doesn't say that. There is something different over there. That is kamesha krodesha. So there is a part of us which needs to be regulated. So basically, how do we make a friend? Negotiate with the mind. That those of what pops up from inside, that is constructive. We facilitate that. Then what happens? We won't feel suffocated. Yes, some things I'm saying no to the mind, but some things of the mind I'm also saying yes to. These are my natural interests. These are my natural inclinations. We accommodate them. Then the mind won't feel suffocated. That's how it will become a friend. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I have a question. Suppose it's a very general question. Suppose a person lives
Okay.
a normal life. All of a sudden, he's thrown into a jail for no reason. And the problem is that he, here I am trying to find the meaning of life, and he has no pleasure. But the problem is, every fourth day he is allowed to visit his people just to talk to them, but he has to again come back. So how can he find meaning in life if there is no pleasure?
Okay. See, there are situations. That's why, if somebody is living a life that is in the pursuit of pleasure alone, that is pleasure is too unstable as a basis for meaning in our life. Because sometimes in our life we will go through phases where there's practically no pleasure, but then the meaning can come through something else. That after I come out, I'll be I'll do this, I'll do that, or while I'm there, I can learn this thing, I can develop this skill. Sometimes in prison also there are facilities for people to learn and develop some vocational skills or whatever. So sometimes we may be thwarted in finding meaning in one or two or three areas, but it is not that we cannot find meaning anywhere. So now jail is a terrible thing. Suppose somebody falls terribly sick and they had big plans, they're young and healthy, and they're hospitalized. They're bedridden. Now you can't go to job, you can't really be with your family, you can't do anything, you can't go out, you can't exercise. Many sources of meaning may be closed. But then somebody may decide, okay, I'm in this bed right now. Sometimes people who are sick, they become so bitter and they are complaining and blaming everyone. And they are sick and they make their caregiver sick of them. Isn't it? Now, at one level, that their sickness and their pain is understandable, but they don't have to make everyone else miserable. At that place, service attitude could mean that, okay, how can I find meaning? I will be polite and kind with others. They're trying to take care of me. Let me try to have a, a positive disposition over here. Now, we can't be happy about what has happened to us. That's a terrible thing. But we can act in a way that we don't worsen the unhappiness in the situation. So sometimes we have to find, okay, what can I do to create meaning? There's this book written by Viktor Frankl. He wrote the book about, he was a Jewish psychologist who was in the Holocaust. The Holocaust was one of the, see, there have been many terrible things in history, but the Holocaust is the only time when there have been mass murders have been there. But the Holocaust is the only time in history um, where industrial efficiency was brought to mass murder. It's horrendous. So he said that even there, he observed that they were just given, their meal was basically just some broth, some soup with a few vegetables within it. And he found that when people were serving over there, some people would go out of, so that the vegetables would be what is nourishing, then otherwise it was just liquid. So some people who would serve, they would take the vegetable out for themselves, keep it separately, and they would just take as many vegetables for themselves and serve just the liquid to others. Some people, they would go out of their way and give vegetables to others and keep just the liquid for themselves. Others would mix it all together and just try to give it equitably to everyone. So in that situation where somebody is in a prison, at any moment they will be sent to gas chamber and killed, we always have some scope to make a difference. So there's always free will. So in that small act of gentleness, of kindness, somebody can find meaning over there. So it is not easy. What happens is, to some extent, to be able to find meaning, we have to shift towards a certain level of curiosity. Curiosity is, what happens is when there is resentment. Why did this happen to me? And that's a valid question to ask, but that's not a helpful question to ask. So curiosity is, okay, now that I'm in this situation, what can I do? So what door is open for me in this situation? Prabhupada himself in his song says, "Ache kichu karya kabe, ei anumani, nahi keno ani be na yugrastani." Prabhupada had come all alone to America, and he didn't know anyone over there. Krishna, you must have some purpose for me. Otherwise, why did you bring me here? So let me try this. Let me try this. So we can always find some room for. Okay.
One last question we'll have very quickly. Hare uh, you mentioned about dharma and you mentioned about my dharma. So what is the difference? I mean, dharma.
My dharma would, see, if Arjuna had asked about my dharma, then it would have become a very specific discussion about whether he should fight or not. It was, the Gita goes about universal questions. So Arjuna's question is universal, and that's why the deliberation of the Gita also becomes universal. So if you see, some people say that Krishna just told Arjuna the Gita to get him to fight the war. But if Krishna, that's what Krishna had wanted, Krishna didn't have to speak any philosophy. Krishna could have just reminded Arjuna about the disrobing of Draupadi. Do you remember how Draupadi was crying at that time? Do you remember how helpless you felt at that time? Do you remember how much you wanted to punish the people who had caused you and Draupadi such pain? Now is your opportunity. Destroy them. Even an ordinary person, if their family is dishonored, they'll get angry. And Arjuna is a trained warrior. So Krishna could have just focused on that level. But it's remarkable, in the entire Bhagavad Gita, there is not a single mention of Draupadi's disrobing. So Krishna did not just want to give Arjuna circumstantial reasons for fighting. Krishna wanted to give Arjuna universal principles for living. And that's how the Gita becomes so relevant for all of us. Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Gaur Premanande.
Hare Krishna. We will thank you for such an enlightening class and very nicely explaining the three tiers how Krishna took fear to fearlessness by one time loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Prabhu had authored on the similar themes, Bhagavad Gita, Mind Control, etc., reincarnation, very interesting 27 books. So they are available online as well as you can contact our yoga devotees.